The room fell silent as the holographic display showed the dying star systems across the Orion Arm. 17 different alien species sat around the circular table, their faces illuminated by the red glow of depleting energy reserves. The Galactic Confederation headquarters on Proxima Station was rarely this quiet. High Counselor Vex, a tall blue-skinned Arcturian with 6 eyes, pointed at the largest cluster of red dots. Without a new energy source, these systems will go dark within 5 years. Our conventional fuel reserves cannot meet demand. Captain Olivia Martinez shifted in her seat. As the human representative, she had only been attending these meetings for 8 months. Humanity had joined the Confederation just 2 years ago, making them the newest and least advanced members of this ancient alliance. There must be alternatives we haven't considered, Olivia said. Ambassador Krell, a reptilian draconian with scales that changed color with his mood, currently displayed an annoyed orange. We have considered everything within the realm of possibility. Human, your species' optimism is charming but misplaced. The chief scientist of the Confederation, a gaseous being named Zorn who floated inside a containment suit, moved to the center of the room. There is one theoretical source that could solve our problems for 10,000 years, but it remains purely theoretical. The holographic display changed to show a spinning, incredibly dense ball of light. A neutron star's core contains energy beyond anything we currently harness, but the gravitational forces make collection impossible. Any vessel would be crushed long before reaching an effective collection distance. Olivia leaned forward, watching the simulation as a theoretical ship disintegrated when it approached the neutron star. The physics seemed clear enough. "Has anyone ever tried?" she asked. The room erupted in sounds that Olivia's translator chip interpreted as laughter, though each species had their own version. Some clicked, others hummed, and a few made sounds like grinding gears. "Young human," said Elder Quan, the oldest member of the council, his 12 tentacles rippling in amusement. "We don't need to jump from orbit to know we will fall. Mathematics proves the impossibility. The gravitational forces would tear apart any known material before it could reach collection distance." Olivia thought of Earth's history, of the Wright brothers who flew when physics said their plane was too heavy, of NASA engineers who landed humans on the moon using computers less powerful than a child's toy, of the first faster-than-light jump that everyone said would tear a ship apart. "On Earth, we have a saying," Olivia said, standing up. "The word impossible is only found in the dictionary of fools." The translator struggled with the idiom, causing more confused laughter. "With respect, Captain Martinez," said High Counselor Vex, "your species has been traveling the stars for less than a century. The members of this confederation have tried all possibilities for millennia." Olivia looked around the room, at beings whose civilizations were thousands of years older than humanity's. Yet none of them had that spark she recognized in her own people, that refusal to accept limits. "Then let humans try," she said, the words leaving her mouth before she could consider the consequences. "Give us the chance to attempt what you believe impossible." The laughter stopped. Ambassador Krell's scales turned a deep purple of disbelief. "You would risk ships and lives on a mathematical impossibility?" asked Zorn, his gaseous form swirling faster in agitation. "Humans have been doing exactly that since we first looked up at the stars," Olivia replied. "It's kind of our specialty." High Counselor Vex exchanged looks with the other council members. "Very well, Captain. The Confederation acknowledges Earth's offer. You have 6 standard months to present a viable approach. But know this, 17 species with far more advanced technology have deemed this impossible. You will likely fail." Olivia nodded, already wondering how she would explain this to Earth Command. Maybe. But everyone said flight was impossible until humans tried. Everyone said faster-than-light travel was impossible until humans tried. She smiled at the skeptical faces around her. "Let's see what happens this time." Olivia stood at attention in the office of Admiral Peter Scott at Earth Command Headquarters in Geneva. The morning sunlight streamed through the large windows, but did nothing to warm the chill in the room. You volunteered humanity for what? Admiral Scott's face had turned an alarming shade of red. He paced behind his desk, hands clasped tightly behind his back. To solve the energy crisis by harvesting material from a neutron star, Olivia repeated. A neutron star. The Admiral stopped pacing. The same celestial objects that have gravity so intense that a teaspoon of their material weighs more than a mountain. Yes, sir. And you made this offer without consulting Earth Command, without any scientific basis. Olivia swallowed hard. I believed it was important to show the Confederation that humans aren't afraid to tackle challenges that others consider impossible. The Admiral sank into his chair. Captain Martinez, I understand your enthusiasm for proving humanity's worth to our galactic neighbors, but this was reckless. We don't have the technology to approach a neutron star. No one does. Actually, sir, a voice called from the doorway. That might not be entirely true. They both turned to see a man with wild gray hair and a rumpled lab coat standing in the doorway. He carried a tablet computer and had the distracted look of someone whose mind was working on several problems at once. Dr. Alan Wright. The man introduced himself, walking in without waiting for permission. I lead the Neutron Star Research Division at the Pacific Science Institute. We have a neutron star research division, Admiral Scott asked. It's just me and 2 graduate students, Alan admitted. But we've been developing theories about neutron star approach for 15 years. He tapped his tablet, and a holographic display appeared above the Admiral's desk, showing complex equations and diagrams. The key isn't trying to withstand the gravitational forces, Alan explained, zooming in on one section. It's creating a localized field that redirects them, like a rock diverts water in a stream. Olivia leaned forward. Is this possible? Theoretically. Ellen nodded. We'd need to build specialized gravity generators arranged in a precise pattern to create a bubble of stable space around a ship. I've run thousands of simulations. And in these simulations, how many times did the ship survive? Admiral Scott asked skeptically. Alan hesitated. 3 times out of 57,000 attempts. The Admiral threw up his hands. Those aren't odds I'd bet human lives on, Doctor. But they aren't 0, Olivia said quietly. 3 successes means it's possible. Alan nodded eagerly. With the right ship modifications and crew, I believe we could increase those odds significantly. Admiral Scott looked between them, his expression softening slightly. Even if I wanted to approve this mission, which I don't, we don't have the resources or time. The Confederation gave you 6 months. We already have the right ship, Olivia said suddenly. The ESV Challenger. It's the newest research vessel with the most advanced shield technology, which is scheduled for a 3-year deep space exploration mission next month, the Admiral reminded her. This is more important, Olivia insisted. If we solve this energy crisis, we prove humanity's value to the Confederation. If we fail, we're just the young species that tried and failed, exactly what they expect. The room fell silent. The Admiral studied the holographic display, watching the simulated ship approach the neutron star over and over, disintegrating 57,054 times, but surviving 3. I must be losing my mind, he muttered finally. Dr. Wright, how quickly can you put together a detailed proposal? Alan blinked in surprise. I have one with me now, sir. I've been refining it for years. Of course you do. The Admiral shook his head. Captain Martinez, I'm temporarily reassigning you to lead this project. But understand this. I want volunteers only. And I want safety protocols beyond anything we've ever implemented before. Olivia nodded, hope rising in her chest. Thank you, sir. Don't thank me yet, Admiral Scott warned. You still have to achieve what 17 alien civilizations, some with thousands of years more advanced technology than ours, have deemed impossible. Alan grinned. That's what makes it interesting. The recruitment center at Lunar Base Alpha buzzed with activity. Olivia had posted the mission details just 3 days ago, and already the room was filled with potential crew members. Some came out of curiosity, others for the challenge, but all knew the risks. "You realize this mission has a high chance of failure," Olivia said to a young woman sitting across from her. "We're attempting something considered impossible." Lisa Chen smiled. Her dark eyes sparkled with excitement. "That's exactly why I'm here, Captain. I specialize in adaptive AI systems that can make calculations under extreme conditions. Regular computers would fail near a neutron star, but my systems might manage." Olivia made a note on her tablet. Lisa was exactly the kind of crew member they needed. Brilliant, confident, and just a little bit crazy. On the other side of the room, Dr. Alan Wright interviewed a tall, muscular man with hands that showed years of hard work. "You were a mining engineer?" Alan asked, looking over his record. "Still am," Ben Harrison replied in a deep voice. "Spent 15 years extracting rare minerals from asteroid belts and the moons of Jupiter. If you're trying to collect something in hostile conditions, I'm your man." Alan nodded. "Have you ever worked with extremely dense materials?" Ben grinned. "I developed the extraction technique for ultra-dense xenorite on Europa. Had to create specialized equipment that could withstand pressure that would crush standard mining tools." Alan's eyes lit up. "We'll need that expertise." By the end of the week, they had assembled a team of 50 volunteers, from which Olivia would select the final crew. She stood before them in the briefing room, studying their faces. "This mission has a very real chance of killing everyone involved," she said bluntly. "If any of you want to withdraw, now is the time." No one moved. "Good," Olivia continued. "Tomorrow, you'll all undergo simulation training. We'll select the final crew based on performance." The simulations were brutal. Each potential crew member faced scenarios designed to test not just their skills, but their ability to think creatively under pressure. Some brilliant scientists failed when confronted with rapidly changing conditions. Some experienced space travelers froze when systems behaved unpredictably. After 3 days, Olivia had her final crew list. Lisa Chen would handle their computer systems. Ben Harrison would oversee the collection equipment. Dr. Victoria Rogers, a materials specialist who had created a new heat-resistant alloy, would manage their shield systems. Jack Brown, a pilot with an uncanny instinct for navigating dangerous terrain, would fly the ship. Miguel Fernandez, a medical officer specializing in radiation protection, would keep them alive if things went wrong. And watching them all with skeptical eyes was Xylox, the alien observer sent by the Confederation. The Quateri stood nearly 7 feet tall, with pale blue skin and 4 arms. He had arrived unannounced the day before their scheduled departure. "The Confederation sent me to document your attempt," Xylox explained to Olivia. "My species has superior recording abilities." What he didn't say, but Olivia clearly understood, was that he was there to witness their failure. "We welcome your observations," Olivia said politely. "Perhaps you'll learn something new about humans." Xylox's mouthparts clicked in what the translator identified as amusement. "I have studied your species extensively, Captain. Humans are determined but often irrational. You ignore clear mathematical evidence when it conflicts with your desires. Sometimes," Alan interjected, joining them, "ignoring the math is exactly what leads to breakthroughs. The math only tells you what's possible within known parameters. Humans excel at changing the parameters." Xylox's large eyes blinked slowly. "An interesting perspective. Incorrect, but interesting." As the final preparations for the ESV Challenger continued, Xylox observed the humans working together, puzzled by their confidence in the face of certain failure. Their behavior defied logical analysis, yet he could not deny their efficiency and innovation. Perhaps there was more to learn about humans than he had anticipated. The ESV Challenger floated in Earth's orbit, its hull gleaming in the sunlight. Over the past 2 months, the ship had been transformed from a standard research vessel into something entirely new. Victoria's team had coated the exterior with her experimental alloy, giving it a slightly blue tint. Alan and Lisa had installed the gravity shield generators at precise points around the ship. Ben had built collection mechanisms that looked like giant mechanical arms. "It's not pretty," Olivia said as she and Alan looked at the ship through the shuttle window, "but it might just work." 32% chance of success in the latest simulation, Alan replied. "Much better than our starting point." The shuttle docked, and they joined the rest of the crew. Everyone was busy with final preparations. Lisa typed rapidly at her console, programming the AI to handle the extreme conditions they would face. Victoria checked the shield generators one by one. Ben calibrated the collection arms. Jack ran through navigation scenarios in the pilot's seat. Miguel organized the medical bay with extra radiation treatments. Salaks watched it all with growing curiosity. He had never seen beings work so hard on a project with such a high probability of failure. "Your crew continues despite knowing the odds," he said to Olivia. "Is this typical human behavior?" "Pretty much," Olivia answered. "We have a long history of doing things against the odds." "Is it not frightening?" Xylox asked. Olivia smiled. "Terrifying. But that's never stopped us before." 3 days before their scheduled departure, disaster struck. During a test of the gravity shield, 2 generators overloaded and exploded. The blast injured 3 crew members and damaged a section of the hull. Admiral Scott's face appeared on the main screen. "Captain Martinez, this incident confirms my concerns. I'm ordering you to abort the mission." "Sir, we can fix this," Olivia insisted. Victoria already has ideas for improving the shield design. "The Confederation has officially expressed concern about human safety," the Admiral continued. "They suggest we admit the impossibility of the task." The crew exchanged looks. They had worked too hard to give up now. "With respect, sir," Alan said, stepping forward, "the aliens want us to fail. They want to prove that humans are just primitive newcomers who don't understand our limitations." "Give us 1 more week," Olivia pleaded. "We'll demonstrate a stable shield test before departure." After a long pause, the Admiral nodded reluctantly. 1 week. But if there's any sign of instability, the mission is over. The team worked around the clock. Victoria redesigned the shield generators with a new cooling system. Ben suggested reinforcing them with the same material he had used for mining under extreme pressure. Lisa rewrote the control algorithms to better distribute power. On the day of the final test, even Xylox seemed tense. He stood behind the crew on the bridge, his 4 arms folded against his chest. "Initiating gravity shield test," Alan announced. The ship hummed as the generators powered up. Everyone held their breath as the power levels rose. The previous failure had occurred at 60% power. They needed at least 80% for the mission to be viable. 60%, Lisa called out, monitoring the system. "Generators stable." 70%, she continued after a moment. "Still stable." 75%, Alan said, his voice tight. "Heat levels rising but within acceptable parameters." 80%, Lisa announced. "We've done it." The crew cheered. Olivia allowed herself a small smile of relief. "Continuing to 85%, Alan said, pushing further. 90%. Suddenly, alarms blared. "Power surge in Generator 5. Lisa shouted. "Shut it down," Olivia ordered. The shield deactivated just as Generator 5 began to smoke. It wasn't a catastrophic failure, but it was still a problem. "We reached 85%, Victoria said, checking the data. "That should be enough to approach the neutron star's outer gravitational field, but not enough to reach optimal collection distance." "It's better than nothing," Olivia said. "We'll have to find another solution once we're there." Xylox stepped forward. "You still intend to proceed?" "With equipment that just failed." "Of course," Ben said, already working to repair the damaged generator. "We'll fix it and make it better." For the first time, Zylox seemed genuinely confused. I do not understand humans. That's okay, Jack said with a grin. Sometimes we don't understand ourselves either. But we never stop trying. The ESV Challenger left Earth's orbit on a clear Monday morning. The ship's engines glowed blue against the blackness of space as it accelerated to faster-than-light speed. Inside, the crew settled in for the 3-week journey to PSR J0100 and 81431, the nearest suitable neutron star. All systems functioning normally, Jack announced from the pilot's seat. Course is set and stable. Olivia nodded. Good work, everyone. We've got 3 weeks to perfect our approach. Let's make them count. During the journey, the crew worked constantly to improve their equipment. Victoria and Ben reinforced the collection arms with additional layers of protective material. Lysa ran endless simulations on their approach vectors. Ellen fine-tuned the gravity shield generators, trying to squeeze out every bit of performance. Zylox observed it all, taking careful notes to send back to the Confederation. At first, he stayed apart from the humans, but gradually his curiosity got the better of him. Dr. Wright, he said one day, approaching Alan as he worked, your equations contain an unusual variable. It does not match standard gravitational formulas. Alan looked up from his calculations. That's because I'm not using standard formulas. I'm using what I call adaptive mathematics. The idea is that the equations change based on real-time conditions. Zylox's 4 eyes blinked rapidly, but mathematics is fixed. It cannot adapt. The universe doesn't read our math books. Alan replied with a smile. We create mathematical models to describe what we observe, but those models are always incomplete. This concept seemed to trouble Zylox deeply. He spent hours discussing it with Alan, trying to understand the human perspective. As they approached the neutron star, the crew gathered on the bridge for a final briefing. Through the main viewport, they could see it in the distance, a tiny point of incredible brightness. We'll reach optimal shield activation distance in 6 hours, Olivia said. Once we activate the shield, we'll have approximately 40 minutes before the generators overheat. The collection process requires at least 30 minutes, Ben added. That doesn't leave much room for error. What if the shield fails? Zylox asked. Your ship will be destroyed instantly. Then we'll be remembered as the humans who tried the impossible, Jack said with a shrug. There are worse ways to be remembered. As the final hours ticked by, tension filled the ship. Each crew member checked and rechecked their systems. Miguel prepared the medical bay for potential radiation exposure. Everyone knew the risks. Shield activation in 3 minutes, Lisa announced. Olivia took her command seat. All crew to emergency stations. Secure all loose items. Gravity fluctuations are expected once we activate the shield. Jack's hands moved smoothly over the controls as he adjusted their approach vector. Ready on your command, Captain. Activating gravity shield in 3, 2, 1. Now, Alan said, pressing the activation control. The ship hummed as the generators powered up. A slight shimmer appeared around the hull, the visual manifestation of the gravity shield. Shield at 60% and holding, Lisa reported. Proceeding on approach vector, Jack said, his voice calm despite the danger. As they moved closer to the neutron star, its gravitational pull became noticeable. The ship's structure groaned under the strain. Outside the shield, space itself seemed to bend and distort. Shield at 75%. Lisa called out. All generators functioning within parameters. Incredible, Zylox whispered, staring at the neutron star growing larger in the viewport. No ship has ever approached this close before. Distance to optimal collection point, Olivia asked. Still 500,000 kilometers beyond our safe approach limit with current shield capacity, Ben answered. We need at least 85% shield strength to proceed further. Push the generators to 80%, Olivia ordered. Ellen adjusted the controls. 80%. Temperature rising in generators 3 and 5. The ship shuddered violently. Warning alarms blared throughout the bridge. Gravitational forces exceeding shield capacity. Lisa shouted, hull integrity at 90% and falling. We need to back off, Miguel warned. Radiation levels are spiking. Olivia gripped her chair arms, facing a decision no human captain had ever faced before. They were closer to a neutron star than anyone had ever been, a huge achievement already, but not close enough to complete their mission. We didn't come all this way to turn back, she said firmly. Jack, hold position. Alan, Victoria, I need options. How do we get closer? The bridge of the ESV Challenger fell silent except for the blaring alarms. The neutron star filled the view screen, its brilliance forcing the automatic filters to dim the display. The ship groaned under the massive gravitational forces. We're at our limit, Victoria said, checking the shield readings. Any closer and the shield will collapse. Then we failed, Zylok stated. The mission cannot be completed. Olivia ignored him. There must be a way. Alan, what if we redirect power from non-essential systems? Alan shook his head. Already done. We're at maximum output. What about pulsing the shield? Jack suggested. Instead of continuous protection, we could strengthen it for short bursts as we move closer. Lisa typed rapidly at her console. Running simulations now. No, that won't work. The gravitational forces are too constant. Any gap in shield strength would be catastrophic. Ben had been quiet, staring at the collection arms he had designed. What if we don't move the ship closer? He said suddenly. What if we just extend the collection arms? They're not long enough, Victoria pointed out, and any material would be torn apart by the gravitational forces without shield protection. Not necessarily, Ben said, his eyes lighting up. When I was mining on Europa, we used gravity itself to our advantage. What if we detach one collection arm and let the neutron star's gravity pull it in? We keep it connected by a tether and use the ship's engines to control its descent. That's... Alan paused, thinking it through. That might actually work. The arm would be sacrificed, but it could collect samples before being destroyed. The timing would have to be perfect, Jack warned. Pull it back too late, and the arm breaks off. Too early, and we get nothing. Lisa was already updating her simulations. I can program the retrieval sequence. We have a window of approximately 8.3 seconds to collect and retrieve. Do it, Olivia ordered. The crew sprang into action. Ben and Victoria modified one of the collection arms, attaching additional sensors and strengthening the tether. Lisa programmed the collection and retrieval sequence. Jack positioned the ship at the optimal angle, using minimal engine power to maintain their position against the incredible gravitational pull. Zylok watched with growing amazement. This approach was not in any of the simulations, he said. Humans are good at improvising. Miguel told him as he prepared emergency medical kits. It's what we do when plans fail. Finally, they were ready. The modified collection arm hung from the ship's underside, aimed toward the neutron star. Collection sequence initiating, Ben announced. Releasing arm. Now. The arm detached from its housing. Immediately, the neutron star's gravity caught it, pulling it down at increasing speed. The tether unspooled rapidly, creating a thin silver line connecting the ship to the descending arm. Tether temperature rising, Victoria reported. It's holding for now. The collection arm plummeted toward the neutron star, accelerating to incredible speeds. On the monitors, they could see its outer casing beginning to glow from the friction and radiation. Collection scoop deploying, Ben called out. 5 seconds to optimal collection depth. The entire ship vibrated as the engines worked to maintain position, while counterbalancing the pull on the tether. Jack's hands moved constantly over the controls, making tiny adjustments to keep them stable. Collection in progress, Ben reported. Sample secured in containment chamber. Begin retrieval, Olivia ordered. The ship's winch system activated, fighting against the star's gravity to pull the arm back. The engines strained at maximum power. Tether integrity at 60%. Victoria warned. Outer casing of the collection arm has been stripped away. 40%. She updated seconds later. The arm is breaking apart. We just need the containment chamber, Ben said tensely. The rest can go. The monitors showed the collection arm disintegrating piece by piece as it was pulled upward. Only the reinforced containment chamber at its center remained intact. Tether at 15%. Victoria reported. It's going to snap. Almost there, Jack said through gritted teeth. Just a few more seconds. The tether snapped with a sound that echoed throughout the ship. For a horrible moment, everyone thought they had failed. Then the proximity alarm beeped. Containment chamber is inside the shield perimeter. Lisa exclaimed. We got it. Ben activated the emergency retrieval drone, which shot out to capture the floating chamber before it could drift away. Seconds later, it returned, carrying the small black box that contained a sample from the heart of a neutron star. The crew stared in silence at the containment chamber, now safely locked in the ship's laboratory. They had done it. They had achieved what 17 alien civilizations had deemed impossible. Impossible, Xylox whispered, all four of his eyes wide. You did the impossible. No, Olivia replied with a tired smile. We just did what humans always do. We found another way. The journey back to Earth was much quieter than the journey out. The crew of the ESV Challenger moved with the slow, careful movements of people who had pushed themselves beyond their limits. But beneath their exhaustion was a current of excitement that could not be suppressed. In the ship's laboratory, Alan and Victoria worked around the clock to study the neutron star sample. The containment chamber sat in the center of the room, connected to various sensors and analysis equipment. The energy readings are off the scale, Alan said, reviewing the data. This tiny sample contains more potential energy than all of Earth's power plants combined could produce in a year. Victoria nodded, adjusting the scanning equipment. The density is exactly as predicted, but there's something else here. Some kind of energy pattern I've never seen before. Xylox had joined them in the lab, his initial skepticism replaced by scientific curiosity. The Confederation's theoretical models never predicted this energy signature. This is new knowledge. Outside the lab, the rest of the crew handled the ship's journey home. Jack monitored their course, making small adjustments to compensate for the slight imbalance caused by the loss of one collection arm. Lisa worked to catalog the massive amount of data they had gathered. Miguel treated the minor injuries and radiation exposure the crew had suffered. Ben sat alone in the engineering bay, already sketching designs for an improved collection system. Next time, he muttered to himself, we'll do better. On the 5th day of their return journey, alarm bells rang throughout the ship. Olivia rushed to the bridge. What's happening? Power surge in the lab, Jack reported. Something's wrong with the containment chamber. Olivia ran to the laboratory. Smoke filled the room, and the containment chamber glowed with an eerie blue light. Alan and Victoria were frantically working at the controls. The sample is becoming unstable, Victoria explained. The energy is building faster than the chamber can contain it. If it ruptures inside the ship. Alan didn't need to finish the sentence. They all knew what would happen. Can we eject it? Olivia asked. The ejection system is damaged, Xylox reported, checking a console. It cannot be activated remotely. Then someone has to do it manually, Olivia said. She moved toward the chamber. But Alan stopped her. The radiation levels are too high, he warned. Anyone who gets close will receive a lethal dose. A heavy silence fell over the lab. They had come so far, achieved the impossible, only to face destruction on the way home. I'll do it, Miguel said from the doorway. My radiation suit can provide some protection. Not enough for a complete shielding, but enough to get the job done. Miguel? No, Olivia protested. There has to be another way. We have less than 5 minutes before the chamber ruptures, Victoria said. There's no time to find another solution. Miguel was already putting on his specialized radiation suit, designed for medical emergencies. "Captain, we knew the risks when we signed up. Let me do my job." Reluctantly, Olivia nodded. The rest of the crew quickly modified the ejection system to allow for manual activation. Miguel would need to physically carry the chamber to the ejection pod and initiate the launch sequence. "Wait," Xylox said suddenly. His forearms moved quickly, removing a small device from his suit. "This is a quaternary personal shield. It provides additional radiation protection. It might help." Miguel looked surprised but accepted the device, attaching it to his suit. "Thank you." With the containment chamber growing more unstable by the second, Miguel entered the high radiation area. The crew watched on monitors as he carefully lifted the chamber and carried it to the ejection pod. His vital signs, displayed on a separate screen, showed his heart rate climbing and radiation exposure increasing rapidly despite the protections. "Ejection pod sealed," Miguel reported, his voice strained. "Initiating launch sequence." The ship shuddered as the pod was ejected into space. On the monitors, they could see it moving away from the ship, the unstable containment chamber safely inside. "Get to decontamination immediately," Olivia ordered Miguel. But the medical officer's vital signs were already showing dangerous radiation levels. Miguel stumbled as he tried to leave the ejection area, falling to his knees. "I can't," he gasped. "Too much exposure." Ben and Jack rushed into the area wearing emergency radiation gear. They half-carried, half-dragged Miguel to the medical bay, where emergency decontamination procedures began immediately. As they worked to save Miguel's life, a bright flash lit up the viewport. The containment chamber had exploded, releasing its energy safely away from the ship. They had survived, but at what cost? 3 months later, the Grand Hall of the Galactic Confederation headquarters buzzed with excitement. Representatives from all 17 alien species had gathered for this special session. At the center of the hall stood the crew of the ESV Challenger. Miguel stood with them, leaning slightly on a cane. His recovery had been long and difficult. The radiation exposure had caused severe damage. But thanks to advanced medical treatments and his own determination, he had survived. He would never again serve on a spaceship, but he was alive. Something the doctors had initially thought impossible. High Counselor Vex approached the podium. "We are gathered today to hear the findings of the human expedition to PSR J0100 and 81431. Captain Olivia Martinez, please present your report." Olivia stepped forward. She wore her formal Earth Space Corps uniform, but her bearing had changed. She stood with the quiet confidence of someone who had faced the impossible and prevailed. "Thank you, High Counselor. Despite the loss of our physical sample due to containment issues, we successfully collected and analyzed material from the neutron star's core. Dr. Wright will present our findings." Alan took her place at the podium, displaying holographic images of their data. The neutron star material contains a previously unknown form of ultra-dense matter. When properly processed, it yields energy output far beyond any existing power source. He continued with the technical details, explaining how the energy could be harnessed. "Using the data we collected, we've already developed a prototype reactor on Earth. 1 kilogram of processed neutron star material can power an entire city for 10 years. The hall erupted in murmurs and clicks of astonishment. Several alien scientists hurried to verify the data, their expressions showing disbelief followed by wonder. Elder Quan raised a tentacle. "How did you succeed where our best scientists failed for centuries?" Ben stepped forward. "We didn't try to overcome the neutron star's gravity. We used it to our advantage. Sometimes the obstacle itself contains the solution." Victoria added, "And we combined technologies in ways never attempted before. The gravity shield alone wasn't enough, but paired with our collection method, it worked." Xylox, who had remained with the humans since their return, moved to stand beside them. "I have observed that humans approach problems differently than other species. They do not accept theoretical impossibility. They seek practical solutions even when mathematical models predict failure. High Counselor Vex studied the humans thoughtfully. The Confederation acknowledges this remarkable achievement. The energy crisis that threatened our worlds can now be addressed. He paused, then added, but more valuable than the energy source itself may be the perspective humans have brought to our community. The High Counselor gestured to the assembled representatives. Therefore, we propose establishing the first human academy of innovative sciences here on Proxima Station. We invite Earth to send teachers who can share this human way of thinking. The proposal passed unanimously. As the session ended, Olivia found herself surrounded by alien scientists eager to learn more about their methods. "I don't understand," she told Lisa as they watched the excited aliens. "We just did what humans have always done." "That's exactly why they're interested," Lisa replied with a smile. Later, as the crew prepared to return to Earth, Zalox approached Olivia with a formal request. "I wish to be assigned as permanent liaison to Earth. I want to continue studying human problem-solving." Olivia smiled, looking to learn how to achieve the impossible. "No," Zalox replied seriously. "I now understand there is no such thing as impossible. There are only problems whose solutions we have not yet discovered." As the Earth transport prepared for departure, news arrived that the first neutron star energy reactor had successfully activated on a distant Confederation world facing energy shortages. The energy crisis that had once seemed insurmountable was already being solved. On the main observation deck, Jack looked out at the stars. "Where to next, Captain? What other impossible challenges should we tackle?" Olivia gazed at the vast expanse of space, filled with mysteries and challenges waiting to be solved. "The nice thing about impossible tasks," she said with a smile, "is that there's always another one waiting, and humans will always be ready to try."